The estate attorney pressed play on the audio file. My mother's voice filled the conference room, crystal clear. That farm is worth at least $2 million, David. Maybe more if we subdivide. Your mother is being ridiculous leaving it to Lily. She's 26 years old, what does she know about property management? My father's response, Mom's getting senile. We'll contest it. No judge will side with a granddaughter over the son when this much money is involved. The lawyer looked at my parents across the mahogany table. This recording is dated February 14, 2021. Would you like to hear the other 473? My mother's face went white. Because my grandmother, the woman they'd just claimed was a confused old lady being manipulated, had spent 3 years documenting every conversation, every visit, every time my parents showed their true intentions. And now, those recordings were about to cost them everything. My name is Lily Morrison, and this is the story of how my grandmother's 3-year insurance policy saved her farm, exposed my parents' greed, and taught me that sometimes the quietest people are playing the longest game. I grew up on Grandma Ruth's farm. 200 acres of rolling hills in eastern Virginia, with a white farmhouse that had been in our family for 4 generations. Apple orchards, a pond stocked with bass, fields that turned gold every autumn. My parents hated it. It's in the middle of nowhere, my mother would complain every Thanksgiving. No restaurants, no culture, no proper shopping. My father saw it differently. He saw dollar signs. Prime development land, he'd say, looking out over the orchards. 20 minutes from the new highway. Could be subdivided into 50 lots easy. But I loved it. I spent every summer there as a kid. Grandma Ruth taught me to drive the tractor when I was 12, to can peaches when I was 14, to read the weather when I was 16. She taught me that land isn't just property, it's legacy. When I graduated college at 22, Grandma made me an offer. Come help me run this place, she said. I'm 78 years old, Lily. I can't manage it alone anymore. Your parents want me to sell, but I can't bear the thought of developers tearing it apart. What would I do? Live here. Help with the orchards. Manage the farmers' market sales. Keep the place alive. She smiled. I can't pay much, but room and board are free. And someday, if you want it, the farm could be yours. My parents were furious when I told them. You're wasting your degree, Mom said. You studied business, Lily. You should be in an office, not picking apples. It's Grandma's business. Someone has to run it. Dad's voice was hard. Your grandmother is being selfish, asking you to throw your life away to maintain her nostalgia. That farm should have been sold years ago. But I moved in anyway. That was 4 years ago. The first year was hard. The farmhouse needed repairs. The equipment was outdated. The orchard had been neglected and needed serious pruning. But slowly, we brought it back. I set up an online store. We started doing pick-your-own weekends. We partnered with local restaurants. By year 2, we were profitable again. Not rich, but sustainable. Grandma Ruth thrived having me there. She taught me everything she knew, which trees to prune, how to predict frost, where Grandpa had buried his good luck dollar under the porch. We worked side by side every day. My parents visited maybe 4 times a year. Always asking the same questions. Have you thought about selling? Dad would ask. Are you still keeping Lily trapped here? Mom would add, as if I were a prisoner instead of a willing partner. Grandma would smile and change the subject. What I didn't know was that she'd started recording their visits. It started 3 years ago, after a particularly ugly Thanksgiving. My parents had brought a real estate agent as a guest, who spent dinner talking about market values and development potential. After they left, Grandma sat at the kitchen table looking more tired than I'd ever seen her. They're not going to stop, she said quietly. Even after I'm gone, they'll come for this place. Then we make sure the will is airtight. She looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. I'm going to do something that might seem paranoid. But I need you to trust me. The next week, a man came to the farm. He installed a small recording system, voice-activated devices in the living room, kitchen, and front porch. Completely legal in Virginia, a one-party consent state, since it was Grandma's house. I'm documenting everything, she told me. Every visit. Every phone call I take on speaker. Every conversation where they show me who they really are. Why? Because when I leave you this farm, they're going to fight it. They're going to say I was senile, that you manipulated me, that I didn't understand what I was doing. Her eyes were steely. But they're wrong. I understand perfectly. And I'm going to prove it. Over the next 3 years, those devices recorded everything. They recorded my mother's phone calls. Mother, you're being unreasonable. That land is worth a fortune. Lily is taking advantage of you. They recorded my father's visits. You're not thinking clearly, Mom. Leaving everything to Lily isn't fair to us. We're your actual children. They recorded the arguments, the pressure, the increasingly desperate attempts to convince Grandma to sell or to change her will. And they recorded my parents saying things they'd never want a judge to hear. She's too old to know what she's doing anymore. We should look into getting power of attorney. For her own good. Once she's gone, we'll fix this mistake. Grandma saved every file. Organized them by date. Transcribed key portions. She treated it like a job, because in a way, it was. She was building a case, piece by piece, conversation by conversation. I didn't hear most of the recordings until much later. Grandma didn't want to poison my relationship with my parents while she was alive. You might need them someday, she said. I won't take that from you. But she made sure her lawyer had everything. When Grandma was 81, she had a stroke. Mild, but it was a warning. She recovered, but we both knew time was limited. She updated her will one final time. The farm, all 200 acres, the house, the equipment, everything, would go to me. My parents would receive $10,000 each from her savings account, which held about $50,000 total. They'll say this proves you manipulated me, Grandma said as we drove home from the lawyer's office. They'll say the stroke affected my judgment. Then maybe we should, no. Her voice was firm. You've earned this farm, Lily. You've lived here. Worked here. Loved it the way it deserves to be loved. They only love what they can sell it for. The recordings will prove I knew exactly what I was doing. She made it 3 more years. 3 good years where we expanded the orchard, built a small farm store, and hosted weddings in the barn. My parents visited 6 times in those 3 years. The recordings captured every minute. Grandma Ruth died on a Sunday morning in May, in her sleep, in the bedroom where she was born. She was 84 years old. I found her at sunrise, peaceful in her bed, her hand resting on a framed photo of Grandpa. I sat with her for an hour before I called anyone, saying goodbye to the woman who'd taught me everything that mattered. When I finally called my parents, my mother's first question was, did she update her will recently? Not how did she go or was she in pain? Just immediate concern about the will. I don't know, I said, which was technically true. I didn't know if she'd made any changes beyond the ones from 3 years ago. They arrived that afternoon with a lawyer. Not for the funeral arrangements, they brought their attorney to Grandma's deathbed. We need to secure the property, the lawyer said. Until the estate is settled, nothing should be removed or changed. I live here, I said. That may need to be temporary, my father said. Depending on how the estate is distributed. They stayed for 2 hours, walking through the house, taking photos, making notes. My mother picked up Grandma's jewelry box and started inventorying the contents. Those were supposed to be mine someday, she murmured. They left before sunset. They didn't help plan the funeral. I buried Grandma Ruth on a Thursday. 23 people came, neighbors, farmers market customers, people from church, the couple who'd had their wedding in our barn. My parents came, dressed in black, standing apart from everyone else. At the reception, I heard my father on the phone outside, yeah, the funeral's almost over. We'll know about the will next week. I'm not worried, she's our mother. Everything will be fine. The will reading was scheduled for the following Tuesday at Attorney James Walsh's office. Walsh had been Grandma's lawyer for 30 years. He was in his 60s, with gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. My parents arrived with their lawyer, Patricia Hammond, a woman who specialized in estate litigation. Walsh read the will in his calm, methodical voice. The farm to me. The house to me. All equipment, livestock, and business assets to me. $10,000 each to my parents from the savings account. The silence was deafening. Then my mother laughed. Actually laughed. This is a joke. I assure you, it's not, Walsh said. My mother-in-law was not in her right mind, Patricia Hammond said smoothly. An 84-year-old woman leaving a $2 million property to her granddaughter while giving her own son $10,000? That demonstrates clear cognitive impairment. Walsh opened a folder. Mrs. Ruth Morrison had a complete cognitive evaluation performed by Dr. Elizabeth Park 6 months ago, specifically because she anticipated this challenge. Dr. Park found her to be of completely sound mind, scoring in the 98th percentile for her age group on all cognitive tests. The evaluation was probably coerced, it was court-ordered, Walsh interrupted. Ruth petitioned for it herself, specifically to establish competency. The evaluation was performed by a court-appointed physician with no prior relationship to the family. My father leaned forward. Lily has been living with Mom for 4 years. She had access, opportunity, and motive to manipulate an elderly woman. This will is the result of undue influence. That's when Walsh smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. I was hoping you'd say that. He pulled out a laptop. Before she died, Ruth gave me something. She called it her insurance policy. She spent 3 years creating it, specifically for this moment. He turned the laptop around. On the screen was a folder labeled Morrison Estate Audio Documentation. Inside were 473 audio files. What is this? My mother asked. These are recordings of conversations that took place in Ruth's home over the past 3 years. Virginia is a one-party consent state, meaning Ruth had every legal right to record conversations in her own home. She organized them chronologically and by topic. Would you like to hear a few? He didn't wait for an answer. He clicked on a file dated 18 months ago. My father's voice, Mom, you're not being rational. You're 83 years old. You can't manage this property. Leaving it to Lily is selfish and irresponsible. Grandma's voice, steady and clear, I'm managing it just fine with Lily's help. She runs the business side. I still know every inch of this land. My mother's voice, you're too old to know what's best anymore. We're trying to protect you from making a terrible mistake. Walsh stopped the playback. Interesting that you'd claim undue influence when these recordings show you were the ones applying pressure. He played another. My mother, that farm is worth at least $2 million, David. Maybe more if we subdivide. Your mother is being ridiculous leaving it to Lily. My father, Mom's getting senile. We'll contest it. No judge will side with a granddaughter over the son when this much money is involved. My mother's face had drained of all color. Walsh continued. This particular conversation took place in your car, in Ruth's driveway, with the windows down. The porch recording device picked it up clearly. Ruth was inside and heard every word. She noted in her journal that this was the moment she knew the recordings were necessary. Patricia Hammond had gone very still. How many of these recordings are there? 473 files. Approximately 92 hours of audio. Ruth also kept written journals corroborating the recordings, along with dates, times, and her emotional state during each interaction. She documented every instance of you pressuring her to sell, questioning her competency, or discussing plans to contest her wishes. He clicked on another file. My parents discussing how they'd split the money after selling the farm. Another of my mother suggesting Grandma might need to be looked into for dementia. Another of my father telling someone on the phone that they just had to wait for the old lady to die and then they'd finally be able to cash in. Stop, my father said. Just stop. Walsh closed the laptop. Ruth Morrison was many things, but senile wasn't one of them. She knew exactly what she was doing. She knew you'd contest the will. And she spent 3 years building an unassailable case that she was of sound mind and that you, not Lily, were the ones attempting manipulation. This is entrapment, Patricia said, but her voice lacked conviction. It's documentation. Ruth never lied to you, never misrepresented anything. She simply recorded your own words, in her own home, which is completely legal. And those words demonstrate a clear pattern of you questioning her competency while simultaneously trying to pressure her into decisions that would benefit you financially. He pulled out another folder. I also have testimony from 12 neighbors and community members who interacted with Ruth regularly. All attest to her sharp mind, clear decision-making, and explicit, repeated statements that she intended to leave the farm to Lily. I have financial records showing that under Lily's management, the farm has been more profitable than it's been in 20 years. I have documentation showing that Lily took no salary, paid rent for her room, and actually invested her own money into farm improvements. Walsh looked directly at my parents. You're welcome to contest this will. But I promise you'll lose. And Ruth included a no-contest clause. If you challenge the will and lose, you forfeit even the $10,000 each. The room was silent except for the sound of my mother's breathing, sharp and angry. Patricia Hammond whispered something to my parents. My father shook his head. More whispering. My mother's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of rage. Finally, Patricia spoke. We'd like to request a continuation. We need time to review. There's nothing to review, Walsh said. The will is valid. The recordings are admissible. Ruth's competency is documented. You can accept the $10,000 each, or you can contest and lose everything. Your choice. My father stood abruptly. This is what you wanted, isn't it? He looked at me for the first time. You turned our mother against us. You isolated her, filled her head with, I loved her, I said quietly. That's all I did. I lived with her. Worked with her. Sat with her every evening. I was there, Dad. Where were you? We have lives. Careers. We couldn't just drop everything to play farmer. No one asked you to. But you also couldn't just let her leave her farm to someone who actually cared about it. You couldn't stand that she valued presence over blood. My mother's voice was ice. You've destroyed this family. No, I said. I just loved Grandma enough to stay. You loved her money enough to wait. They left without another word. Patricia Hammond followed, already on her phone, probably calling to tell them what I knew. They had no case. After they were gone, Walsh pulled out one final envelope. Ruth left this for you. She said to give it to you after the reading, whether they contested or not. Inside was a letter in Grandma's handwriting, written just weeks before she died. My dearest Lily, if you're reading this, you've just sat through what was probably a very ugly meeting. I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry your parents are who they are. I'm sorry I raised a son who sees land as investment instead of legacy. But I'm not sorry for leaving you the farm. You earned it. Not through manipulation or influence, but through love. Through showing up every day. Through learning the work because you cared about the work, not because you cared about what it was worth. I started recording 3 years ago because I knew they'd fight this. I knew they'd claim I was senile or that you'd tricked me. But here's what they never understood. I was protecting you, yes, but I was also protecting myself. I wanted to die knowing that my wishes would be honored. That the farm I was born on, that your great-grandfather cleared with his own hands, that has been Morrison land for 127 years, would stay Morrison land. That it would go to someone who sees it as home, not as acreage. Those recordings were my way of making sure I had the last word. Of making sure that even after I was gone, the truth would be told. Your parents will probably never forgive you. That's not your fault, and it's not your burden to carry. You didn't take anything from them. They gave up their claim the day they started seeing me as an obstacle to profit instead of as their mother. You gave me 4 beautiful years, Lily. You gave me purpose in partnership and the joy of knowing the farm would continue. You gave me someone to share sunrises with, to teach, to love. I got to die in my own bed, in the house where I was born, knowing the land was in good hands. That's worth more than any amount of money. Take care of the place. Take care of yourself. And know that every day you spend on that farm, I'm there with you. With all my love, Grandma Ruth. P.S. The good luck dollar is still under the porch, third board from the left. Your great-grandfather put it there in 1897. Don't tell your parents. Some things should stay in the family. I sat in that office and cried. Walsh quietly left the room, giving me privacy. My parents did try to contest, despite the warnings. They spent $60,000 on legal fees over 8 months. Patricia Hammond did her best, but there was nothing to work with. Every argument was countered by Grandma's recordings, her documentation, her cognitive evaluation, her explicit written statements. The judge dismissed the case and invoked the no contest clause. They lost the $10,000 too. I haven't seen or spoken to them in 2 years. They sent one email, a long rant about betrayal and manipulation and how I'd stolen their inheritance. I deleted it without finishing it. I still live on the farm. I've expanded the orchard, built a proper farm store, and started hosting farm-to-table dinners in the barn. Last year, we grossed $340,000. The farm that my parents saw as something to liquidate is now a thriving business. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, I sit on the porch and listen to a few of Grandma's recordings. Not the ones of my parents, those are filed away with the lawyer, probably never to be listened to again. But Walsh gave me others, ones I didn't know existed. Grandma talking about me when I wasn't around. Telling a friend, Lily's the best thing that ever happened to this place. She loves it the way my Henry did. Grandma on the phone with her sister, I know people will say I'm being unfair to David. But you can't inherit something you never valued. Grandma in a video recording, made specifically for the legal file, I am Ruth Morrison. I am 84 years old. I am of sound mind. And I am leaving my farm to my granddaughter Lily because she is the only one who understood what it really was, not property, but home. Last week, I was replacing boards on the porch. The wood had finally rotted through after 120 years. Third board from the left, I found a silver dollar from 1897, wrapped in oilcloth, just where Grandma said it would be. I've put it in a frame in the kitchen, next to a photo of Grandma and me standing in front of the orchard. Underneath, I've written, Morrison Farm 127 years and counting. Here's what I've learned, legacy isn't about what you leave behind. It's about who you leave it with. My parents wanted Grandma's assets. But they didn't want the work, the sacrifice, the daily commitment that turned land into legacy. They wanted inheritance without earning it. Grandma spent 3 years recording their words, documenting their intentions, building an unbreakable case. Not because she was paranoid. But because she was playing a longer game than they ever understood. She was making sure that the farm, the land her grandfather cleared, the orchard she planted with my grandfather, the legacy she'd protected for 84 years, would go to someone who would protect it for the next 84. My parents said she was senile. That she didn't know what she was doing. But those 473 recordings proved something they never expected. Grandma Ruth knew exactly what she was doing. She was making sure that when the lawyers gathered, when the will was contested, when my parents tried to claim what they'd never valued, the truth would speak for itself. And it did.